as Ross introduced me, I'm Alex Duncan. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of a company called OpenMind Network, which is one of our sponsors here today. Welcome to this part of the conference, and welcome to all those that are here. It's great to see so many people in real life, and welcome indeed to those that are online. I believe there's a big audience online as well. We're going to talk about fraud today. We have particularly fraud across the ecosystem, and we have an amazing panel which I'm going to introduce. They're going to come up now and join me. But I'm going to do a short presentation first, but we'll get the panel up. We'll start off with Mark Granger, who is the VP of Sales in Engage Hub.
Sit here?
Yeah, you can sit under your picture actually, Mark. That would be good.
If that was my picture. Happy to.
Mark, whatever you're doing, Mark, it's working. We'll start. Eileen Carroll, who's the CEO of Puka, who are business messaging specialists. And we have Walter Wellauer, who is from Swisscom, and he's in charge of the business side of A2P and enterprise in Swisscom. I'm going to start with this presentation, and then we're going to get into the panel discussion, which I'm going to lead as well. And I said we're going to look at fraud across the ecosystem. OpenMind is uniquely positioned to look across the ecosystem because we have customers from mobile network operators into local aggregators, international hubs, and indeed large enterprises who use our systems for generating revenue and also protection. We sit in the whole ecosystem, and we deliver on-premise and indeed cloud and indeed hybrid solutions across that ecosystem. We set the company up with the purpose of enhancing people's lives and connecting the world with amazing messaging experiences. Fraud is having an impact on those amazing messaging experiences that we want to drive, and we're here to just talk about fraud and really talk about why haven't we solved the fraud issue, because it's eminently solvable, and we seem to be standing back off. And I'm just going to really debate some of those issues and talk among the panel and indeed talk among the audience as well. So we're going to ask the audience a question just after the presentation about regulators. Will regulators have an impact on that? There'll be a way of doing it online as well. It'll be interesting to see the outcome of that in relation to the questions that we ask. So, dealing with the fraud issue. So the first thing we're going to go is, what is the problem? And I think the problem really is that we are losing trust in the industry of the people to a large extent that pay for the services that we provide. There's two constituents that pay for our traffic in messaging networks. They're the enterprises and indeed the subscribers that they're delivered to. And without the subscribers, we don't have enterprises. But we have a major issue with trust. And as you can see, 7 out of 10 people are not trusting messages that are really coming from enterprises. And you will have seen that yourself. Let's just categorize the problem. I know we've talked about this categorization. We talked about this problem, but I've categorized them into three different areas. Smishing, we've all seen those. We receive messages pretending to be from an organization, and we click on them. They ask for credit card details. We give our credit card details. It's a fraudster, and they get access to our credit card or account details and take money from us. And Nick Lane presented a number of times that's happening on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. That's a major concern for the industry. There are winners and losers in this. The winners in this case are the fraudsters, the criminal fraudsters. The losers in this case are subscribers, and sometimes the losers are the banks, which are also our customers in this ecosystem. But also the winners in smishing is the ecosystem. And we don't call that out. We do get paid for delivering that traffic. So we're on the winning side in that, and I think we should be cognizant of that. In terms of artificially inflated traffic, we've talked about that, and we talked about that today, and indeed again this morning. We see enterprises being charged for traffic that's not real. We've seen large enterprises, even small enterprises actually. We see small enterprises where numbers are put in, traffic is inflated, even for a small enterprise, costing that enterprise tens of thousands of euros, not millions of euros, but we've seen millions of euros as well. Winners in this case are the fraudsters, criminal fraudsters. The losers in this case are our customers, the enterprises. Another winner in this case is the ecosystem. We're being paid to carry the traffic. In the third category, which is the category of SIM farms and the category of grey routes, and that's where our networks, our ecosystems are being bypassed by criminal fraudsters who want access to our networks. Winners in this are the criminal fraudsters. The losers in this case is the ecosystem. So, we've got some winners and losers in this room. We are losers at the bottom because people are bypassing our networks, and we're winners at the top when phishing is in our networks, and indeed when artificial interface traffic is in our networks. So certainly winners from a short-term perspective. How big is the problem? Nick, it's always hard to follow Nick because he's so full of data, and it really is like the Support Act following the Main Act. But here is some data from the scale of the problem. We've had the Fraud Loss Survey 2021 said there was a $3.1 billion loss due to bypassing the ecosystem. That's quite a big number. Lang Telecom, who's a member of the MEF, has said that they said 6% of all traffic was AIT. And indeed, Cinch, also a member of the MEF, said 60% of traffic that they were seeing was coming from SIM farms. So they're quite substantial numbers in terms of the scale that we see of the problem. So what's the human and the business impact of this? Niall Fitzmaurice is a local Irish journalist who is tech savvy, intelligent, young. He was caught on the smishing attack. He went quite public with it, and his current account was cleaned out through a smishing attack. So we're not talking about your children. We're not talking about your aunts and uncles or your parents or your grandparents. We're talking about people who are tech savvy or being caught by smishing attacks. And the AIT example was well published, where Twitter said they lost 60 billion due to artificially inflated traffic. What we're seeing in networks is small organizations are being attacked from an AIT perspective. So there is a cost, and it's both of those ends of the spectrum are customers to a large extent of the full ecosystem. So without subscribers, we don't have a business. Without subscribers using text messaging and accepting text messaging, we don't have a business. And without enterprises having confidence and trust in a text messaging system, we don't have a business. We don't have a business either. So what can we do? The good news is this is eminently solvable. It is a cat and mouse game. I think Nick mentioned that as well, but it's solvable to a large extent. And the plan is very simple. Go analyze what's going on in your network and then put your protection systems in. There are many companies in this room today. There are companies in the ecosystem that can solve this problem. OpenMind is one of them, but it's not the only one. And this problem can be solved. So the question is, why? Why isn't it solved? So I'm going to assert we have a moral hazard. We have this moral obligation to do the right thing by our customers, but we have this economic imperative that we like traffic, and we like the amount of traffic going on in our networks, and I think we're caught in this bind between the short-term imperative of reducing the amount of traffic in our networks with the long-term benefit that we have a sustainable business in front of us. And I sat down with the marketing team. We said, okay, what is this like? This must be like something else where there's a short-term moral hazard to do the wrong thing, but there's a long-term implication in our business if we don't do the right thing. And it kind of brought back the kind of the green agenda. Like if we don't do the right thing now, our planet's going to suffer in the future. And not to put it on that scale, but it's that kind of thing. We have an opportunity right now to do the right thing and put the right protection systems in place in our businesses across the full ecosystem, and we will protect this messaging revenue that is here. There are threats outside the fraud. We have other threats such as OTT, and we heard Nick talk about WhatsApp and WhatsApp's growth. WhatsApp right now doesn't suffer from the kinds of things that SMS suffers from. But I'm a big believer in SMS. My company's a big believer in SMS, and I think SMS is something that we can solve, and I think we should solve it. And so I'm going to sit with the panel now, and we're going to spend a little bit of time discussing with the panel this, and I'll be interested in the questions from people that we have here physically and indeed the people that we have online as well. So our panel. So there's a couple of questions we have for the panel. I will take this as well, and let me just go across the panel, and let me start with Walter. And how much do you think of your traffic is fraud, Walter?
That's really hard to assess because what we've learned is there are several types of fraud, of course. And at the moment we are basically concentrating on AIT and smishing, where we use your system to detect those messages. But, and it's also not equally divided. It comes in waves. So
yes, So Swisscom were one of the first European players to really attack this issue and put in systems to actually protect their subscribers. We've been a long supplier of Swisscom over many years. We provide all the core messaging, but we also provide the protection systems. But when we came to the network, Swisscom were concerned about the smishing activity in the network, but we've seen somewhere between 5 and 10% of the traffic was smishing, and we kind of brought that right back down. So that's kind of an indication of kind of what's sitting in networks. Mark, in terms of your traffic in your network. So just again, in terms of the ecosystem, again, I'll just introduce people again what we have. So we have a mobile network operator, and we have two aggregators, we'll call them in terms of the ecosystem, but two kind of international aggregators in terms of Engage Hub and Impuka. Big focus clearly of the aggregators is to drive enterprise traffic and drive the engagement with enterprises with their consumers.
Thanks, Alex. I suppose we would not position ourselves as an aggregator, but rather as a cloud software provider. And we specialize in journey orchestration, journey automation, and obviously the channel delivery piece of that is vitally important. SMS being a huge component of that. We have always used white routes or tier one access. And so from that perspective, and this, at the risk of sounding arrogant, we don't believe we have any fraudulent traffic because, in essence, we're the data processor, and the brands, the enterprises, the customers of ours that we see are obviously the data controller. However, what we are seeing is that, particularly in the banking sector, where we do a lot of work, that messages are almost identical to the legitimate traffic that's being sent from our platform. We're seeing, as to the Twitter example there from Niall Fitzmaurice, who obviously got conned with as an AIB customer. We're seeing almost identical templates that are going out. The only variation would be obviously on the link, the URL. So, I think that grey routes play a role in that. But I think though, and I think it's no longer the elephant in the room, but there's illegitimate traffic that's being delivered via legitimate routes, because fraudsters are now willing to pay for legitimate white route traffic, whereas before they didn't have to.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. And Eileen?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's such an interesting area, interesting and also a little bit horrifying. I think, a couple of years ago when the first smishing events really came to light with AIB and Bank of Ireland, I was genuinely shocked at how pervasive it actually was. And the first thing I did was sit down and spent 2 days just looking into it and going, well, what is this about? What resources are there for our customers? How can we help them mitigate against smishing? And obviously the MEF were coming into play then as well. FraudSmart here in Ireland are a very effective information outlet as well. So look, we're a small aggregator and messaging software provider. Our market is mainly in Ireland, 90% in Ireland, in fact. So we really focus on this market. And with smishing, I I guess I'm maybe jumping ahead to what I think we should be
Should do-
doing
well,
and
that's
so on.
okay.
And maybe
Answer that question because I'll come back down. Yeah,
if
answer
you
that.
don't mind,
Yeah, of course.
just looking at smishing initially, the first thing I did was just contact our customers and say, well, look, this is what we know. These are the resources available. This is what you should maybe be looking after, out for rather. And this is maybe what you should be talking to your own customers about. I guess, you know, as a software provider, we're like the meat and the sandwich here almost between the enterprise and the mobile network. So we're trying to kind of stay in contact with everyone and, you know, encourage communication. You know, it is...
Could you, for example, lean on the MNOs for solutions?
It's a tricky one because we're a drop in the ocean, you know, compared to, you know, other providers who are here doing billions of traffic a week. It can be difficult to be heard sometimes, which is why the MEF is so brilliant. It's the forum that allows us to kind of input on these kind of matters. But I think it doesn't just fall to the aggregators, obviously. And I think when you're looking at, you know, as Elon Musk has pointed out, the AIT issue in the industry, I don't think it's necessarily the aggregators who are necessarily benefiting from it. You know, there can be other reasons that traffic is inflated. And I would say that certainly among reputable companies like ourselves, that there would be absolutely no question that we're writing bots to inflate traffic or do anything like that. That would be absolutely unheard of. So, I mean, I think the kind of things that the industry can do is to get together to discuss how, from the user experience point of view, can we mitigate against artificial traffic inflation. You know, it could be putting frequency capping in place, you know, looking at ways of using CAPTCHA to verify customers before the one-time password is sent, just to kind of slow down the process. And for ourselves, I think Mark will agree that, you know, the kind of clients that need to really rely on one-time passwords, they need to know that the messages are being delivered fast. So for that kind of traffic, which is only maybe 40-50% of our traffic, we would put them onto what we call red carpet to make sure that it goes through as fast as possible, so that the user isn't inadvertently going resend, resend, resend. Because who knows? I mean, maybe for Elon, that's what was actually happening, and there wasn't any control on the speed at which people could resend passwords, and that inflates traffic. So it's the behavioural aspects as well. Yeah.
Very good, thank you, Eileen. And Mark, what do you think we should do about this?
Well, if we start by not necessarily patting ourselves on the back, but acknowledge what has been done. So Eileen referenced MEF and specifically the SMS Sender ID registry. I think that's a great initiative. And we're happy to be a part and support that. There's many companies, I think, in the room that play a role in developing software that filters out and blocks grey route traffic. I think that has had obviously a hugely positive impact. If we're looking at, you know, 90% white route traffic, as Nick was presenting earlier, then, you know, that's a really positive initiative. I think, I think there is a role to play for all of us. It's not just, as Eileen said, incumbent on the aggregators to look at how better to monitor illegitimate traffic going down those legitimate routes. But there's definitely solutions. I know I was speaking yesterday with a few people. We're involved, and I don't want to jump the gun, but one such initiative is in analysing those URLs and building an automated solution at an aggregator level that can kind of prevent and block the messages from being delivered based on the content of those URLs. Now, how scalable that is, that's a challenge. And certainly we're involved, but it's specific to a banking customer. But it's had a huge impact
Very good.
in notifying. And
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. And then from a mobile operator perspective, you can speak on behalf. What do you
Yeah.
think mobile network
Yeah.
operators should be doing
Yeah.
in this space?
I mean, I wasn't very happy with your statement that the ecosystem is profiting from artificial inflated traffic, because, I mean, this is a very short-sighted view. If you look at a bit far more in future, then it should be in our common interest to keep the channel clean,
Absolutely.
keep the channel trusted, and there are
Yes.
certainly different ways where we should work on. One is technical with solutions like you're providing. One is sender ID registration, which is a big hassle for us because every country has its own processes, its own regulations, and that's very painful for us to fulfill if you're sending out international. And the industry should really come together and build up a common process that can be used throughout the industry. And the third one, I think, with artificial inflated traffic is to stop the money flow. Because, I mean, 10, 15 years ago, I think there was a lot of problems with voice scams where PBXs got hacked, and then a lot of dial-outs, and then processes were established to stop those money flows and use debriefing the frauds of the business model. And we should really work on that with SMS2, because we are disputing nowadays some of the cases, the bigger cases. We're disputing them with the foreign operators, but if they do not comply with this, then they are probably part of the problem. So.
I think you're right, absolutely. Well, there's two parts to the solution. There's a technical solution, there's a commercial solution. How do you see traffic traveling through your network, and how do you commercially make it difficult for traffic that is not legitimate to come into your network? You know, stop paying fraudsters, for example. And in some cases, you know, this is where I say that the contention is stop paying fraudsters. How much of the network is fraud traffic? If we stop paying for that traffic coming in, what impact does that have on our revenue terms in the short term, right? So you're caught in this bind between, and I think that's part of the dilemma. You're caught in this bind between the short-term pain of not paying and having the turnaround with criminal traffic, not paying for it, and not having that revenue and indeed profit drop to your bottom line, because these messaging services are highly profitable.
It's an interesting point, actually. I think the issue out there of malicious actors self-onboarding onto messaging platforms, I think, is something that we should openly discuss. We're small enough that we vet every customer, obviously, and I'm sure that's the case normally, but there may be aggregators or platforms out there that don't vet every customer.
You self-manage yourself onto the platform.
Yeah, you just buy credits and you just go on and you blast out your messages, and I'm sure that's happening. And I think that as a requirement shouldn't be too hard to implement.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So more vetting of the enterprises coming on and using those platforms.
Yeah.
Now, there is other routes. Clearly, there are grey routes. There are people who offer grey route access, who are SIM farms, etc. Will bypass the proper routes effectively to get access. So there's still requirements for solutions at a technical level inside networks to protect them against this kind of thing. But there are, I don't think there's one solution for all this. There's one solution across the full ecosystem that is required at the different stages of the ecosystem, which includes both the commercial side but and the technical solutions of those. But we have a couple of minutes left. We might just open it up to either the floor here or indeed the online audience if there was any questions there. Nothing online.
Hi, Alex. Your company's been around for many years. You operate globally. Can I just ask you, certainly from within MEF, I run the Fraud and Revenue Assurance Working Group within MEF. Eileen, thank you very much, and everyone for mentioning the SMS Sender ID Registry is operational here in Ireland, UK, and indeed Spain. We're looking for new territories for that and talking to a few countries, so those look very positive as well. With your operations and where you work in, do you see a direct correlation, a very simple correlation, with the commercial model, in simple language, where messaging, where SMS in particular, is a reasonable price? We all know what a reasonable price is, all the experts in the room and online, compared to other places, and fraud. Is it that simple from what you're seeing with your clients globally?
It's not that simple, but it is an indication. The more expensive, what James is asking, the more expensive the route gets, is there more likely to be fraud bypassing that route? Not direct correlation, because it's, some people will actually increase the price of it and put protection systems in place to ensure that they get that pricing for it. I suppose one of the questions is, and we're noting an increase in prices, but why is prices increasing, do we think? What is it about mobile network operators that are inflating the price of their traffic? Greed?
I don't necessarily think so. I think there's a sense in the mobile operators that there's a higher operating cost to managing, to carrying messages from the industry, and by having the mobile operators in a conversation and making them aware of the benefits to their customers, all the different use cases where SMS is so useful and essential to managing, alerts and so on for businesses. And I think really just flying the flag for SMS as an excellent method of communication. I think also the need for stability in pricing is there because, companies like us, we have to buffer our customers from pricing changes. So it makes it very difficult if there's sudden jumps in pricing with hardly any notice. It just makes it harder. And I think, as an ecosystem and a community, working together, it really is the best way to mitigate against that.
I talked to a very large enterprise, and they buy billions of SMS on a yearly basis, and they're quite shocked at the lack of futures that they can buy in SMS, meaning they can't guarantee prices in the future. And they said it's unlike SMS is considered a commodity for these large enterprises, and they find it. I can buy future prices in gold, I can buy future prices in money, I can buy future prices, but I can't buy future prices on SMS. I can get 3-month contracts. And it's phenomenal that as an industry we can't give future pricing, we can't give SMS pricing for the next 3 years. We do have a threat. One-time password leaving SMS is a real threat to this business. We see the amount of traffic we see in SMS for one-time passwords. If it leaves a lot of value. So I think it's incumbent on us to protect one-time passwords in this industry and to protect the subscribers at the end of the day from smishing activity, and broader protect both the enterprises who pay an awful lot of money to be in part to deliver messages in this industry, and subscribers who, without them, we don't have an industry as well. So my call out would be the protection systems are there, they're simple to implement, they do cost money in the short term, but the long term benefits are phenomenal. We will have an industry of billions and billions of euros for years to come.
Alex Ireland has a question.
Yes.
Hi. I think that we need to set apart the different types of fraud. I think it was mixed up a little bit. There are a couple that we self-inflict. We shoot ourselves in the foot. AIT and the high pricing are two issues which totally internal industry caused. And I shouted out greed. I didn't mean to insult the mobile operator on sitting there. But from my conversation with mobile operators over the last 6 months, trying to understand where AIT came from, that's where it came from. They needed to increase revenue from SMS. It's very difficult to increase A2P SMS by a flick of a switch, the amount of traffic. So they wanted to increase the price. It doesn't cost us that much to operate, and it's good margin. So let's see how much we can raise the price before it affects how much people are going to use it, which is a classic economic principle. It's fine. So that's self-inflicted. The other one, which is high pricing, AIT and high pricing are tied in there together. AIT, we make exclusive contracts. We have to meet the contracts. And it's not necessarily fraudsters who are involved. There are a lot of legitimate companies within this ecosystem who are involved in AIT purposefully. So, we have to be aware of that. It's not people. Your example of stopping the voice money coming in because of the fraud on the voice money. It's not stopping people outside the industry. It's stopping the transfer of payment within the industry that stopped it in the
I think that's a really good call out, Ara. Yeah, thank you for that, John.
And the third type that we're talking about is the SMS smishing, spoofing, hijacking, bypass, which is more caused by external players, fraudsters who are trying to come in and trying to leverage the ecosystem that we created in order for their own financial.
Yeah.
And those solutions are different,
Yeah.
and we have to look at them differently.
But I would say, we are seeing in our networks AIT traffic generated not just on the inside of the ecosystem, but on the outside of the ecosystem, sending messages to premium rate numbers in small numbers, where it's actually quite lucrative from fraudsters to do AIT on a small scale, not on a massive scale inside the industry. So that's why it's both.
So, sorry for my small speech, but the question is does the industry need to self-police to reduce the first two, okay, and then find external solution for the third? And is it possible to self-police within this industry?
I'd say yes, yes, and yes.
I actually don't feel. I actually don't feel offended by your statement, because in Switzerland the prices are really, really low. Compared, everything else in Switzerland is quite expensive, but SMS is not. I can assure you. And the prices they went down over the years, and they are around 2 to 5 cents nowadays.
Hi. Kind of continuing the line of conversation that is in the questions and the previous one by Nick. Historically, the prices for SMS in the United States are very low, and the projections are also showing that it's not going to go up. And since we're talking about the whole world raising the price of SMS, we're seeing this huge elephant in the room that does not seem to be affected by the same factors that are affecting everybody else. I mean, what do you see the reason behind it? And maybe if it's some specific measures, some government involvement, something else, could be implemented somewhere, around the world, not just the US?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wouldn't say the US is immune to do price increases. I don't think there's anything special about the US market from my perspective. I have a couple of customers in the US, so I don't think it's immune to do price increase. I think the market is different to other markets because of the size of it. It had, the enterprises and the use in the market, the substantial use of text messaging in the market is quite different to other markets. But just the phenomenal size of the population in that market, and the large use of enterprises in that market to communicate, and the engagement in the US from a text perspective is quite high.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much.